Hello and welcome. I'm your host, Neil Howard. Thank you so much for joining us once again for Health Professional Radio. We'll be speaking with Jeremiah Robison, founder and CEO of Cionic. He's going to talk about the company's success with the FDA-cleared Cionic Neural Sleeve. It's the first bionic clothing to combine sensing, analysis, and augmentation to help individuals with neurological conditions like MS, stroke, and cerebral palsy live much more freely and independently. Welcome to Health Professional Radio. Jeremiah Robison, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me, Neil.
Tell us a bit about yourself, a little bit about your professional background, and who is Jeremiah?
Absolutely. Well, I started my education at Stanford University, where I graduated with a bachelor's and master's degree in computer science. And I've always had a deep love for embedded computing. So I started my career at Apple. I worked on the Newton, which was their first handheld computing device, and working on handwriting recognition in the late 1990s. So neural networks before they were cool, and just fell in love with this idea of computing all around us. I went on to build one of the first mobile web browsers to go into cell phones, shipped just over 1 billion web browsers before there was an iPhone, before there was Android, and then just got sucked into the world of consumer health and started a company that I eventually became one of the first wrist-worn mobility trackers for a company called Jawbone, which tracked steps and sleep and different activities, as well as doing some really advanced work with needle in the haystack problems. Think apneas and arrhythmias in heart rate data during sleep. So I'm a big believer in the future of healthcare being everywhere and wearable, and excited to take that into my latest venture.
So you have a vast array of knowledge in this area. What was your inspiration for founding Cionic? How did you come up with the concept of the company's premier product, what I mentioned in the opening as the Cionic Neural Sleeve?
Yeah, this is really a personal mission for me. When my daughter was born back in 2009. She was born quite premature, 28 weeks, 0 days, and was delayed breathing. And it's a common diagnosis from that early distressed birth. She was diagnosed at the age of 1 with a condition called cerebral palsy, which is the most common childhood motor disability and impacts her ability to walk. And as we went through the medical journey as parents, there's just a limited number of options for her. Physical therapy is one thing that she does and continues to do. There are a few orthopedic procedures to try to reduce the stress on her joints as she struggles with her mobility, but there really wasn't much that was available for continuous home use. And there were 2 experiences really that sort of were the inspiration for what the product ultimately became. One was a clinical gait assessment where she would go into a lab actually down at Stanford University, my alma mater, and they would wire her up with little sensors and have her walk 10 steps across a flat surface and 10 steps back and say, well, this is how she walks. And it's like, okay, well, but how does she walk out in the real world? So that's where we started, with sensors that would measure both the muscle activity that was happening, how her muscles were firing, when they were firing correctly and when they were not. And then we combined that with a second clinical experience, which is called functional electrical stimulation. When she's at physical therapy, her therapist will follow behind her with 2 buttons and with electrodes placed in different areas of her body, press those buttons when muscles should fire. And I thought, you know what, we can take both that sensing system and that electrical stimulation system, combine them into a garment that she can wear on a regular basis and be able to provide that same level of augmentation to her gait and movement continuously.
Now, you described the concept, and of course, it's the impetus for this Cionic Neural Sleeve. How does it work? I mean, if it's a sleeve, does someone have to be behind the patient with this as well? How do you pinpoint where these stimuli need to be?
Yeah, we really focused within the design of this system on independence of the wearer. And so it's meant to look and wear like clothing. It is a dual layer of lycra with a hydrogel interface. It's basically a substance that helps to make the electricity comfortable and effective. And so the user will put that sleeve on, typically in the morning. It has 4 arrays of electrodes, so a 2x3 array, which allows us to basically create a virtual electrode in software. And so they're really able to control that without having to try to fuss with where the electrodes go. We have 4 arrays of those electrodes, one on the quadricep, one on the hamstring, one on the dorsiflexors, and one on the calf muscle. And each of those plays a particular role within gait. And so there's a rechargeable control unit. It's about the size of a cell phone, and that contains all the algorithms and the hardware for stimulation. And so it really operates independently. It observes the motion of the user. It understands where it needs to provide the stimulation, and then it puts a small amount of current into the junction between the nerve and the muscle to activate the muscle itself. And so this is a really great option for people who have upper motor neuron conditions, which include multiple sclerosis, cerebral palsy like my daughter's, post-stroke, and some certain spinal cord injuries where the signal between the brain, the signal of intent, and the muscles is interrupted somehow, either through lesions or an injury of some sort. And we can really provide continuous algorithmic control of their walking movement.
How does this garment look? Are you going to look good doing it?
We aim to. We took inspiration from, if you watch the NBA, those single leg compression garments that they wear. It's meant to really look like a legging, and that was really important in the design, and motivating us to think harder about the problem, not just from the functional side, but what it feels like to have a disability, to have people looking at you and asking you questions about your assistive devices. Can you make something that does, I think, one, it's discreet enough that it can be worn under clothing. It's pretty lightweight and thin, so it can be worn under pants or under a dress. And 2, if you want to show it off, it's cool enough that you could do that. So, I think fashion, function, and all of these elements come together in a solution that we hope is elegant and can be worn and proud to be worn every day by our users.
Talk about this neural sleeve, how it's being used by professionals, the recent FDA clearance, and then give us a website where listeners can learn more.
Absolutely. We are commercial stage since January of this year, meaning that we are shipping to our end users. We also have several centers of excellence. Our first one was with Shirley Ryan Ability Lab, which is the #1 rehab hospital in the country, and that's where we're combining the great aspects of our home use device with the clinical expertise of Shirley Ryan. And people can go to our website at cionic.com. Order a sleeve, get a form for a prescription. It is a prescription-only device, as you mentioned, FDA cleared. And so take that form to their clinician, get a prescription, send it back to us, and then we can get the individuals set up, and we do that all virtually. We have a telehealth layer in our system so that people can get set up, and we can follow up with them on a regular basis to make sure they're getting the most out of their device and their system.
Well, this is going to address a very critical need. Thank you so much. I'm hoping that you'll come back and tell us some more about how this is improving people's lives.
Absolutely. Would love to. Thank you so much, Neil.
You've been listening to Health Professional Radio. I'm your host, Neil Howard, in conversation with Jeremiah Robison. Audio copies of this program are available at healthprofessionalradio.com.au, also at Anchor, Spotify. And be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel at youtube.com/Health Professional Radio.